Davante Adams officially is on the trade block. Should the Niners go after him? We'll discuss that and more next on 49ers After Dark. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to 49ers After Dark, presented by the Sleeper app. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Jessie Naylor. Topic of the day, Davante Adams. He wants out of the Raiders after 4 weeks. Who could have seen this coming? I picked them to win the Super Bowl, but surprise, they're not good for the 30th year in a row or whatever. And so now he wants out. And, a lot of people are connecting the dots like, hey, he's from East Palo Alto. He might want to play for a good team. Mike Silver wrote an article in the Chronicle today saying the Niners should go after Davante Adams. If they were to go after Davante Adams, what would that trade package look like in the real world?
Yeah, let me preface this by saying I highly doubt he ends up here. I think there are other teams that make more sense. But if the 49ers were to trade for him, the Raiders, it sounds like, want a second-round pick. And it sounds like they're also willing to pay some compensation or some of his money that he has owed to him for the rest of the year. So 49ers wouldn't necessarily be on the hook for that. I mean, the way that I see it is Davante is essentially a one-year rental. I mean, you could get him, you could extend him, but most likely he's out after this year. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. So who can you give up that's also kind of a one-year rental? Deebo Samuel. Deebo's the guy. So why not give them Deebo and like a fourth or a third? I would do that. I don't know that I would give up a second for him, but if you wanted Deebo and a third, I'd probably listen to that conversation.
See, I want to come back to this because I like this. I think this thought popped in my head last night as well, the Deebo trade. But I'm terrible at math and numbers and salary cap stuff. I hate it. I don't want to learn it. Why is it not feasible to just trade Ayuk for Davante Adams?
Well, Ayuk's going to have a bunch of dead money because you just signed him.
And would it be spread out over a few years because it's post June 1, or would it all fall next year?
Being that it's post June 1, it would be this year and next. But the one thing that I would say with Ayuk is that if you were to trade him, he does have that big amount of money that kicks in. I think March of next year, you would be off the hook for that, which is interesting. So there would be some benefit to trading Ayuk. I don't think that, again, everybody's pissed at Ayuk and, oh my God, $30 million. But reality is what he's making this year is nowhere near $30 million. And the whole point of Ayuk is to be the future number one weapon. He's still going to be all of that. So why I wouldn't want to give up Ayuk now, knowing that Davante is most likely a one-year rental. Now, do I think Davante today is better than Ayuk? Certainly. But you want Ayuk for the long term. Ayuk's not going to be this player that we've seen through 4 weeks forever. He's just not. He's going to improve. He's going to get back to who he is. And he's going to be very important to this team in the long term. So I wouldn't want to trade Ayuk for Davante Adams.
That being said, Deebo's having a better year than Ayuk so far.
For sure.
Yeah. And the thing with Ayuk is he should be rounding into form, but what's kind of alarming to me is that he wasn't super great in the playoffs last year either. And so I don't know if this is all just like a football shape issue or teams catching on to the ways that Kyle Shanahan's been using him with Brock Purdy. Like Ayuk alluded to that a little bit. It would be kind of unprecedented and potentially irresponsible to trade a player who's 26 a month after giving him an extension, not to mention like a $23 million check signing bonus, just to give up on him a month later and bring in someone who's 32 and will be gone next year. Like that would be unprecedented. And if they don't win a Super Bowl, they'll get crushed and potentially fired. So that's probably why that won't happen.
Yeah, but the other thing too, when I look at Deebo and I look at Davante, I feel like Davante is like the perfect marriage between Ayuk and Jennings. Like he's a really good route runner like Ayuk. He's a big body with a great catch radius like Jennings. And I look at Brock Purdy and he really loves throwing to Jennings. Last year, he loved throwing to Ayuk. Deebo has been playing well, but you've got the injury thing that you worry about. And ultimately, he's just not going to be guaranteed to get open when press man, good corners are against him, Davante Adams is always going to be open. And he's always going to be where you expect him to be. And if you throw the ball his way, he's coming down with it. So I just feel like Davante Adams with Brock Purdy would be so great to watch. Much better than Debo. I love Debo, but I just think, I don't know. I feel like Debo overall has kind of ran his course as far as what his best days are with the 49ers.
Yeah, I think the most alarming stat with Debo Samuel right now is his yards after the catch. It's not there. It's non-existent. This guy was giving you almost a first down after the catch every time he touched it. Now it's like 4 yards. And if he's not giving you that, and he's not beating press man coverage, and he's not much of a contested catch guy or a catch radius guy or whatever, yeah. Debo for Davante Adams sounds good to me.
Yeah, I would love it. And a lot of people last week were like, "Oh, so thought Debo couldn't beat man on the deep play." It's like that wasn't man. B, the safety blew his coverage. And I mean, not saying he can't ever get open deep. That's not what anybody's saying. But on a regular basis, no, that's not his game. It's just not.
Yeah, what the Niners were doing that game, to talk a little bit of scheme, is like the safety didn't even necessarily blow his coverage. Like that's just the weakness of quarters. If you know the defense is in quarters, then what you're going to try to do is to get those safeties to like bite on something intermediate over the middle, because if they do, then the outside corners have outside leverage on a post from the wide receiver, and it's really hard to stop a post from behind with outside leverage. You know what I mean?
They were also only like 8 yards off the line of scrimmage, so that's not ideal either when you're supposed to be over the top. So
right, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see if the Niners go after Davante Adams. Don't expect it. But then again, expect the unexpected. All right, moving on.
Go ahead. Quick, though, I do want to say, there is an element to Davante Adams that could have an impact on the 49ers depending on the team he goes to. Luckily for the 49ers, I think the teams that are most likely, you say the Saints, the Jets, what have you, those teams aren't really going to impact anything that the 49ers do. You look at like a Tyreek Hill. Imagine if Tyreek Hill ends up somewhere in the NFC on a threat team. Now, all of a sudden, like that could become an issue. Luckily, Davante Adams most likely is not going to a team that's going to impact the 49ers negatively.
What about the Rams?
He could go there. I don't see the Rams being buyers at this moment. I think the Rams are going to wait. Now, what I will say, though, is the Rams' number one corner, who was projected to potentially be out for the year early on, they opened his practice window this week. So all of a sudden, they may go into the bye week like 1-4. But they come out of that bye week and they have almost all their players back. All of a sudden, they might make a run. So the Rams could get interesting.
Be interesting. Is it too early to worry about playoff seeding? The Niners are already sort of fallen behind the Vikings for sure, the Lions and the Commanders as well. A bunch of teams.
Yeah, I don't think that it is too early, Grant. I mean, it's interesting because everybody almost acts as if early games in the season don't matter, but they all count the same. You get to week 18, your record is your record, and every loss and every win counted the exact same, whether it was week 1 or week 18. And when you look at the 49ers, and right now, a lot of people don't believe in Minnesota. I don't know how you can't at this point. They just beat 3 playoff teams from a year ago and expected playoff teams going into this year pretty handily. All 3 of them run a Shanahan-style system. All 3 of them have young, borderline top 10 quarterbacks, and they handled all of those teams with ease. I think they're for real. And even if they take a bit of a backstep, let's say they go 9-5 down the stretch, that means the 49ers are going to have to go 12-2 just to have the upper hand, because if they have the same record as Minnesota, they lose the tiebreaker because they lost to Minnesota. 12-2 is a lot to ask. And I think Minnesota, you look at that schedule, I don't think 9-5 is far-fetched at all for as good as they're playing. So, yeah, I mean, playoff seeding is super important. This team is older. Yes, they've made deep runs when they haven't been the number 1 seed, but they've never made it to a Super Bowl when they've not been the number 1 seed. And you're almost, with that loss to Minnesota, basically counting as like a half a game, you're already almost out of the race for the number 1 seed unless Minnesota just somehow falls completely apart, which I don't see happening barring injury, which, you can't predict that stuff. So, yeah, I don't think it's too early at all to think about these things.
What's interesting is like the Niners right now are behind Minnesota, Seattle, and Detroit in particular. And those are like 3 of the most dominant home teams in the league with the biggest home field advantage. Like Seattle and Minnesota, those places are so loud. And then Detroit, we've seen what they do at home. They're really tough to beat in that dome, on that carpet. So that's 3 teams that the Niners are already behind that they have to. I mean, they have to face Detroit. They got to face Seattle twice. They already lost to Minnesota. I think those are going to be some interesting. You don't want to face those teams on the road. And it looks like, I mean, it's early, but it's looking like the Niners are going to have to play some road playoff games.
Well, I mean, the Detroit game is going to be super important. I imagine that those 2 teams are going to be close. The Green Bay game might become very important. And the 49ers right now, they don't have any wins in the NFC, right? Am I mistaken? They're 0-2 in the NFC. So their 2 wins, they're right now, they're losing all the tiebreakers. Now, again, it's very early, but these tiebreakers all matter as you go throughout the course of the season. So to me, luckily for them, they've got the Arizona Cardinals, which are very beatable. And then you've got the Seattle Seahawks. You look up after this 3-week stretch, and if you played it right, you're 3-0, and now you went from last to first in the NFC West. You're in a much better spot, but still, if Minnesota beats the Jets this week in London, it's like, well, how are you catching them? How are you taking the number 1 seed from them? I don't know.
Yeah, to me, it seems like this is a team that's going to have to be like the one from 2021 and 2022, a team that made a run late and had to win games on the road in the playoffs. They can do it. It's really not easy to do. And depending on how many you have to do in a row, it's exhausting. But, I mean, again, this team has, I guess, this team has more pedigree than any other team in the NFC. So even if they are the 6th seed or something, you can't write them off.
Now what they can do is, as long as they go into the final week locked into the playoffs, they can manufacture a bye week in week 18. They certainly can do that, and that would be helpful. But what they can't have happen is a situation like, what was it, 2021, where they had to win just to get in. Now it's like, okay, so you've just gone 10 straight weeks playing football. Now you have to run off another 4 to win a Super Bowl. I don't think this team at this age is built to do that. So they're going to have to at least manufacture a week 18 bye week, which means they've got to start winning a lot of these games.
Well, keep in mind, Dre Greenlaw coming back. Christian McCaffrey maybe coming back. Davante Adams probably getting traded for. So there's a lot of reasons to think that once the Niners get Davante and Christian McCaffrey on the field together, I mean, watch out.
That Freudian slip on McCaffrey was apropos.
Oof. Sorry about that. Christian. Okay. So the Niners beat the Patriots, and all of a sudden we're hearing stuff like Brock's playing better than last year and the Niners are back. It's like nothing happened before this week. The Niners won a game. They're good. When will the Niners be back, quote unquote, however you define that in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. You're supposed to beat these teams. I know you just got lined up 3 straight games against 3 of the worst defenses in the NFL, starting with the Rams, a game that you lost. Then you beat the Patriots, and now you're getting another one with the Cardinals. But to me, it's really about this division. And we talk about Super Bowls, we talk about playoffs. It starts with winning your division. And the 49ers, if they don't win their division, they've taken a major step back from where they were last year. A division that they dominated, essentially would have gone undefeated most likely if they had played all their guys week 18. So you can't then fall to 1-2 in your division or 0-3, heaven forbid they lose to the Cardinals. To me, once they take control of the division again, which means beating Arizona, beating Seattle on the road, you win those games and you take control of the division, and you're getting some of these players back, I'll start to feel really good about where the 49ers are at. So I just give me 2 more weeks of wins, and then I'll be like, okay, I feel it now. I see it. I feel it. And stay healthy. I feel like they're back. But right now, man, a win against the New England Patriots, like, no, that's not enough for me. It's just not.
Last year when the Niners started 5-0, they were really feeling themselves, and they were smacking teams. And they would say, like, they would beat, a team like 35-10, or they would beat Dallas 42-10. And after the game, they'd be real cool about it. Like, it's not really about Dallas. It's about our standard. And we play to our standard. And if we got to win by 32, that's just what we do. So to me, like, that's what I'm looking for, like a real dominant performance where offense plays well, defense plays well, special teams plays well on the same day. Because like this is a team that's done that any number of times. It's not a young team. It's not a newly put together team. Like that's the standard. They've accomplished everything a team can accomplish other than win a Super Bowl. So beat New England in September and kind of let them hang around and play sloppy, but win by 17 anyway. Like that's impressive for sure, but that's not the standard. So, and we'll know the standard. The standard could happen this week. They could go and smack Arizona 42-10 and be like, yeah, that's the Niners we saw last year. And to do it without Christian McCaffrey would be very impressive. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. A complete game, all three phases.
Yeah, we've got what, 8 days? 8 days, and we'll know if they've met the standard because they have 2 games in 8 days, and these are both divisional games. And I don't care what anybody says. It's funny because 49er fans are on like this, I don't know, quest to discredit what the Seahawks have done because they have 3 wins against bad teams. But who have the 49ers beaten? Who have the 49ers beaten that are worth a damn? You could say the same thing about them. Now, obviously, the 49ers have past pedigree, and we're relying on that and all those things. And the other thing is like, oh, Geno Smith sucks. It's like, well, statistically, I mean, he's doing every bit as good as Brock Purdy right now, who a lot of people are trying to compare to Mahomes. So I don't know. To me, I don't want to discredit a good team. If I think Seattle's a good team and the 49ers beat them, that makes me feel better that they actually beat a good team. Why are you going to discredit a future opponent and take away from what the 49ers are doing well? That doesn't make any sense. You should want to feel good. If they keep beating bad teams, you can't then come out and be like, oh, well, the 49ers are this and that, and they're great, but the Seattle Seahawks sucks. Like, well, then who have they beaten? I think Seattle's a good team. I also know that Seattle was without all 4 of their starting defensive linemen last week, both edge rushers, both defensive tackles, without their middle linebacker, lost their starting safety. So really, they were missing 6 of their starting 11 defensive players and 5 of their front 7. That's a big deal against a Lions team that can run the ball on anybody. And so I think that the 49ers are going to face a completely different team in Seattle. And I think they're going to win that game. And I think I'll be very impressed when they do so on the road.
Also, we're talking about how this team is likely going to have to, or possibly position themselves to have to win playoff games on the road. And they've done that. Like, this is a team that was so cohesive that they were great on the road. Last year, they were 6-2 on the road. They lost to Minnesota and to Cleveland, and those were their only 2 road losses. Right now, they're 0-2 on the road. And in those 2 games, to me, they got outworked. You could argue they didn't really show up. I don't think they showed up to the Minnesota game until the second half. And I'm not sure they ever showed up to the Rams game. They got outworked by an inferior team they thought was going to roll over. So when I'm looking at a team, how cohesive are they? It's easy for a talented team to show up at home. You see that in basketball. You see it across all sports. But can you really do that? Can you achieve your standard on the road? That's something I want to see. And it's not something we'll see this week, but we'll see in a week and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's and it's also, I think, another reason why the 49ers really should consider resting Kittle and Warner, because if you play them and they tweak their injuries, now you go into that Seattle game potentially without 2 big names. I think you can beat Arizona without both them. Now, not that it'll be easy. It's a divisional game, but I would rather face Arizona without one or both of them than Seattle without one or both of them, because I think that Seattle game's going to tell us a lot about both teams when they play.
Yeah, Seattle looks pretty good. Geno looks pretty good. Kenneth Walker looks pretty good. DK is really good. It's a good team. Okay, let's make some sleeper picks for the sleeper people in the sleeper world. Hold on. Okay, so I just want to brag because I'm getting really good at the sleeper stuff. This was Monday Night Football. I mean, just look, that's perfection. Not quite perfection. I bet against Geno Smith, and I regret it because really it seems like he's a pretty good quarterback. Like, if you put him on the Lions and took Goff off, would they be better or worse? Maybe better.
Yeah, I don't know.
Geno's more mobile than Goff. They're both kind of accurate. I don't know. Both kind of mechanical, but I feel like Geno's actually a little bit more fluid than Goff. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. I got Geno wrong. I got Aiden Hutchinson right, Goff right. Kenneth Walker, right. Tim Patrick, get out of here. DK Metcalf, of course. Noah Fant, come on. I'm in the zone, Jesse. This is what the zone looks like. So let's keep it going.
All right. Let's do it.
All
I don't
right.
want to mess up the zone.
All right, Jordan Mason.
Would you say you're in the cone zone? Is that
I'm
fair
in the
to say?
cone zone, the ZOHN, which is way
All
better.
right.
So look, there Jordan Mason's got some serious inflation right now. Rushing and receiving yards, 99.5. He's eclipsed it 3 out of 4 games, but like a guy could sprain their ankle. I mean, hold on. There's that, but what about this? What about this action here though? 10.5 receiving yards.
I feel better about the rushing and the receiving, and I'll tell you why. Right now, Arizona is giving up 146 rush yards per game.
Good.
So if you give me both to get to 99, I feel really good about that. Because if he gets
I love that
30
logic.
Receiving, then you know what I mean?
I love that logic. Thank you for talking me into that out of the wrong one. Okay, Ayuk, this is controversial. Receiving yards or receiving touchdowns? Will he have his first touchdown of the year? Or we could go with 58.5 receiving yards. I mean, yikes.
I just don't know what to expect, man. It just seems like schematically they're not going to him right now. It's so bizarre. I'll tell you what, just because everybody down at the bottom there is going more, like less is the way to go. Sometimes being a hater is the way to win these things.
Less
like
on the yards or less on the touchdowns?
On the yards. 88.5% are going more. That usually means that Vegas knows something we don't.
Okay. Kittle, Jennings for a touchdown for Jennings. He only had a touchdown in one game. He doesn't get it. He only gets about 55% snap count.
What's his yardage? What do we have any?
They won't let us do it. It's for Jennings. It's only touchdowns for today.
They don't know how to.
Jennings. Let's come back to Jennings because that one's a tough one. How about Kyler Murray? 29.5 rushing yards, a pick, 220.
Let's go more on 29.5 rushing yards.
That's the Niners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, he's done more now every game except for last week, averaging 10 yards a carry. That's real. Marvin Harrison Jr., 57.5 receiving yards.
He's like right at 60, I think. But I do like the more on the touchdown.
The touchdown. Interesting. I like that. That was a expert pick right there. James Conner. Yards, touchdowns.
Yards, I like more.
57.5, I like more too. And then let's see if we can get some easy ones. I like the gimmies. Elijah Higgins. You think he's going to score a touchdown?
No.
Absolutely not. I love that. Trey McBride might. Wilson might. Is Dortch going to score a touchdown? No.
0 touchdowns? No. Yeah, let's go. Let's just go with the law of averages.
Hell yeah. I think that I'll stick there. 7 is a pretty good number. Those are my picks. They're all correct. Some are Jesse's as well. I've been putting down $25 because I've just been so successful recently. If I get them all right, I get $774, but I'm going to flex it just to be prudent. Flex it.
I like to be safe.
Yeah. And there it is. You guys want to play? Download Sleeper app, use promo code Cohn, COHN, and get instantly entered to win 2 tickets to the 49ers Week 8 Sunday night game against the Dallas Cowboys. I already bought them. I'm in possession of them. It cost me $1,000. $1,000. That's how much people want to see Dallas and the Niners. So you want those tickets? Don't buy them. Just get the Sleeper app, download, but use promo code Cohn. You feel me? Okay. I got a question for you. Well, I was doing the stream with Rob Stats Guerrero this morning, and he very casually, matter of factly, said that, well, Brock Purdy's playing better than Patrick Mahomes this year. And I let him finish, and I was like, well, he's not playing better than Patrick Mahomes this year. And he's like, what are you talking about? Yes, he is. So I didn't even occur to me that it was an argument that someone could make. But clearly, Mahomes' numbers are down this year for a lot of reasons. But hey, Purdy's missing Christian McCaffrey. Is Brock Purdy playing better than Patrick Mahomes?
I think overall statistically, yeah. I mean, he's got more yards. Their completion percentage is almost identical. His passer rating's higher. They've got the same amount of touchdowns. Mahomes has 1 more turnover. Here's why I'm going to give the edge to Mahomes, though. It's about being timely. And I do not believe that wins are a quarterback stat. However, games are always close in the NFL for the most part. I mean, you're going to get blowouts here and there, but most of the time games are close. And when it's crunch time, are you winning, helping your team win, or are you a hindrance? Let's look at first half and second half stats. So we'll go first half. Patrick Mahomes in the first half has 3 touchdowns and 4 turnovers. He's completing 66% with a passer rating of 77. Not very good at all. But in the second half, he's been a completely different quarterback. He's got 3 touchdowns to 1 turnover, completing 72% of his passes, a rating of 108, so it jumps up 31 points, and he has 2 game-winning drives. Brock Purdy, on the other side, is doing very well in the first half, and he's not doing bad in the second half, but not near as good. So his first half stats, he's got 4 touchdowns to 1 turnover, 65% completion, a 111 passer rating. In the second half, though, he only has 1 touchdown and 3 turnovers, completing 73%, so good completion percentage, and his rating is 98. So just because of the timeliness of Patrick Mahomes and what he's working with, I'll have to give the edge to Patrick Mahomes. But I definitely think overall, statistically, you can make an argument for Purdy, but those second half stats are, I mean, 1 touchdown to 3 turnovers. I can't say that guy's playing better when some of those games have been close and they really could have used more touchdowns and less turnovers to win those games for the 49ers.
I mean, what's kind of interesting about this like argument all of a sudden is that like because Purdy has better numbers, quote unquote, than Mahomes, he's better. Like he had better numbers than Mahomes last year.
Mm-hmm.
He led the league in quarterback rating last year. And I mean, like most people would argue that like the top 10 list of people in quarterback rating aren't necessarily the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. Like the number 1 quarterback rating right now is Sam Darnold, 118. Then it's Josh Allen. Then it's Jaden Daniels. Then it's Baker Mayfield. Then it's Joe Flacco. Then it's Joe Burrow. Then it's Brock Purdy. Then it's Kyler Murray. So if you want to go just by stats, Brock Purdy is clearly better than Mahomes, who's the 18th best quarterback in the league right now, but he's not as good as Joe Flacco and Jaden Daniels and Baker Mayfield. So I think a little bit more context is necessary. And we're talking about Mahomes. Like, I think weapons matter here. Like, I think everyone's impressed with Brock because he's playing without McCaffrey. Wow. What struggle. But he still has all these great players. He still has like one of the best running backs in the league, 3 of the best wide receivers, the best tight end. I mean, come on. It's not exactly like impoverished over there. But then you look at Patrick Mahomes, Rashee Rice, hell of a player. He went down. Xavier Worthy, hell of a player, rookie. Travis Kelce, I don't know. Maybe he's sandbagging it again this year, but he looks old as hell. We'll have to see about that. I feel like we're finally seeing Mahomes without weapons, and I think even Joe Montana would have struggled without weapons. Like you do need someone to throw the ball to eventually. There's only so much scrambling around you can do.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, two years ago, Juju Smith-Schuster was his number 1 wide receiver. They won a Super Bowl with him, and
Kelce was the number 1 wide receiver.
Well, right, but I'm saying just receiver, right? True. Like not tight end, but number 1 receiver was Juju. Juju was cut from the Patriots, right? Like outright cut from the Patriots. Couldn't even make their roster. They picked him up as insurance, and now they're going to have to use him again. Last year, their number 1 receiver was Rashee Rice, who was a rookie, but they had Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and they went and picked up who was his name? He used to be their receiver, McCole Hardman. Went and picked him up from the Jets that got cut again. So
Tony.
You're talking about guys that are getting cut from bad teams. By the way. They went and got him again. Yeah, they went and got him again.
That's how desperate they are.
It's not good over there, but they've got 2 Super Bowl rings with this hodgepodge of players. I mean, so you can't deny it. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is doing his thing. And
they're still 4-0.
That's the other thing. He just finds a way to win the games. But again, second half stats matter for him because no, he's not playing great in the first half. Kyler Murray's another one. I think you're going to bring him up. You know, like how is he compared to Purdy? Statistically, again, him and Purdy are very even. But I would give the edge to Purdy because if you look at Kyler, almost all of his stats are coming in the first half and really the first quarter. He's got like a 150 passer rating in the first quarter. In the first half, Kyler has 6 touchdowns to 1 turnover. But in the second half, he has 0 touchdowns on the whole season. It's like, okay, well, when you're in a tight game and you can't even score or lead a scoring drive or not turn the ball over, that matters. And Patrick Mahomes is playing really good football when it matters most. So those things are very important.
Patrick Mahomes this season has 2 game-winning drives and 18 in his career in the regular season. Brock Purdy this season has 0 game-winning drives, and he has 1 in his career, and it was, against the Raiders as a rookie. So, again, like, hell of a player, but he coulda led a game-winning drive against the Rams a couple of weeks ago. He made the throw to Ronnie Bell. Bell shoulda caught it. He had other opportunities. He had Brandon Ayuk wide open. He saw him. He stared at him. He thought about it. He weighed the pros and cons. He said, he loves me not. He wrote a poem about it. He went home, called his dad, said, should I throw to Brandon Ayuk? Dad was like, yeah, I would absolutely recommend it. Called his lawyer. Lawyer was like, as your attorney, I recommend throwing to Brock Purdy. Didn't do it. So I said, Brandon Ayuk, damn, I messed up the bit. Anyway, I still think Brock has to prove that. Like, the best quarterbacks, if they're making hella money, you can put him on a mid-team, give him a 10-point deficit, and he'll bring him back. We've seen Mahomes do it any number of times. We've seen Stafford do it any number of times. We haven't seen Purdy do that yet. Doesn't mean he can't.
Here's the problem with statistics is they will lie to you all the time. They'll tell you whatever you want to see.
They tell me the truth. I have
they
a deal
do tell you the
with
truth.
statistics.
Yeah. Well, you're dating statistics. But I'll give you an example. Stafford. Statistically, the game that they played against the 49ers didn't really hold a candle to Brock Purdy, right? The difference was this. When he needed to complete a 45-yard pass, he did it. And there was also a 40-plus yard pass that he threw that wasn't caught, but it was pass interference. So he doesn't get those yards, but that got them a touchdown. I think they got a touchdown on that drive. If he doesn't take that risk and throw the ball, they don't get the penalty and they don't score on that drive. So those things also are not going to show up in a stat sheet. When you're throwing for your yards, when you're throwing your touchdowns, all those things matter. What does it look like? How open are players? Like, there's so many little nuances that you can't just go off statistics. Now, I think statistics are great if you're like actually watching these players and then you go to the statistics, you're like, oh, I thought I saw this, but now I'm confirming it with statistics. Okay. But just raw statistics can be very deceiving at times. They really can.
True. I know we brought him up a little bit, but I want to ask you, who's playing better, Brock Purdy or Kyler Murray? And the reason I ask, Brock Purdy's quarterback rating 104.9, Kyler's 104.6. I know he has a first half, second half split thing, but it's just remarkable. Their numbers are neck and neck. One guy, like Brock's is completing 68.9% of his throws. Kyler's completing 69.4. Now, no one's pushing it down the field better than Brock right now, but Kyler Murray's also averaging 10.5 yards per rush. So I think you'd often say that Brock has the better supporting cast, although Kyler's isn't bad.
Yeah, I think again, I think timeliness does matter. And the fact that Kyler has 0 touchdowns in the second half all season, that's kind of damning. It is.
It's not good. If you took Kyler off the Cardinals and put Brock on the Cardinals, would they be better than 1-3? And if you took Brock off the Niners and put Kyler on the Niners, would they be better than 2-2 or worse or the same?
I mean, I honestly think both the teams would probably be the same, but I do think like long term, if we're just gonna like average this out, I don't know that the Cardinals would be better with Brock than Kyler. Like, I think that might stay the same, but I actually do think the 49ers with Brock would be better than they would with Kyler, just because it's the style of play. Style of play matters, and Brock Purdy plays within the structure of the offense much better than Kyler ever would. Now, Kyler is a phenomenal athlete. He's just such a bonehead sometimes. You don't know what you're going to get from him. And just playing within the structure of the offense, I think Brock Purdy is going to do that on a more regular basis and stay on schedule. So I think long-term, the 49ers would be better with Brock, but I don't know that Arizona would be better with Brock.
It was interesting listening to Kyle talk about Kyler today, because his whole thing was like, he's one of the most dangerous players in the league. But in the past, on the other team, he was pretty much going off schedule all the time. And it seemed like from Kyle's perspective, he was putting that on Kingsbury, although Kingsbury's doing such a good job in Washington. We'll see if he can keep it up. But from what Kyle said is like now that they have like a more traditional offensive coordinator, he comes from Cleveland, who was the Kubiak tree, which is essentially the Shanahan tree. He said like you see him operating the offense the way it's supposed to be operated, and he just was like surprised or impressed or proud. I don't know. It just seemed like he was very taken. But I mean, you're supposed to praise the opposing quarterback anyway.
Yeah, but
But
you know
there's
who
like
doesn't?
code, right? There's like, oh, and then there's like the real praise and the fake praise. It felt like real praise to me.
What does Nick Bosa say? Because that's really what
You
matters.
gotta
And
make him
Nick
play
Bosa
quarterback.
praised him.
And what to me is what he's saying, like, no, he's playing quarterback, and I'm
Yeah.
impressed. Not like
Yes.
he's dangerous, but if we force it, like that's what they say with Jalen Hurts, right? Just keep him in the pocket.
Yeah. No, Nick Bosa is very honest. He's going to tell
Yeah.
you exactly what he thinks of opposing quarterbacks. And the way he talked about Kyler Murray was pretty glowing. He's like, before you really had to worry about him running all the time. You still have to worry about him running, but he's playing within the offense and he's going through his reads a lot more. So he's playing the position at a much higher level than what he has in the past.
I got a stat for you. Kyler has played 6 games, I think, against the Niners. I believe that's true.
Okay.
It's 2-4. And in those games, Nick Bosa has sacked him a grand total of 2 times.
0. Oh,
2
2
times.
Okay.
He's done it, but it's not easy. Not easy.
He's squirrely, man. He's he's a squirrely
so
fella.
quick.
Yeah.
He might be quicker than Lamar. Now, Lamar's bigger and can like take a little bit more contact, and you can run him around the goal line. They don't really run Kyler Murray around the goal line, but just straight up scrambling. I don't know that I've ever seen someone as dangerous as him. Maybe I don't know, man. He's just so he doesn't want to get touched. He's like the Tyler Lockett of quarterbacks, but damn, he's quick.
He physically, like obviously not his stature, but just what he brings to the table has an argument to be top 3 in the league. Like if you're just taking athletic ability, he's top 2, top 3, but he's just so I don't know. There's just something missing with him, man. There's just something missing.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like we felt that with Sam Darnold. We felt that with Baker Mayfield. And sometimes a quarterback can sort of figure it out in their late 20s. Doesn't mean Kyler will. But I for sure wrote off both Darnold and Baker Mayfield. And this year I'm like, oh, they're functional. Actually, they could be good in the right situation. So I'm interested with Kyler, but once again, he's 1-3. And every year they're my sleeper team. And every year they're freaking 5-12. Kyler
next year.
Yeah, next year's the year.
Next year's their last year because they got 115 million in cap space next year. So,
oof. Bucket of chicken, new member. You seem like you're going to be a valuable member to the community. Thank you. Xavier says the players seem to be bailing out Kyle and his bad play calling. If it wasn't Purdy's immaculate scrambling, Jawan's tough catches, Mason's legs, and Warner's turnovers, this team would be winless.
Yeah, I mean, but then if you replace them with starting level players, what would those guys do? I mean, listen, players are more important than coaches, but coaching and coaches do matter in this league. They do. I mean, Minnesota, I think, is a great example of it.
Those 4 players definitely have been the Niners MVPs through the first 4 games. Prapa says Purdy's the most interesting player in recent NFL history. Nobody agrees on how good he is. Niners don't know either. We'll see when contract time comes.
Yeah, but I think he is interesting, but I think everybody agrees that he is good. It's just the degree of how good, I guess. And I think also people go way too far, right? Like somehow we've gone from Brock's elite in the offseason to now we're comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. It's just like, can we pump the brakes a little bit? And then if you're on the other side of that and you're like, well, I mean, listen, of course I'm not taking him over Mahomes and Allen. It's like, oh, you're a hater. Okay, well, since we have 2 extremes, then it seems like we're never going to meet in the middle. But the reality of the situation is, I don't know that anybody for a long time has not said that Brock is good. It's just how good do you think he is? And I think we're getting a little over our skis when we start comparing him to guys like Mahomes and Allen. We just are.
No, he's the best quarterback in the league. What are you talking about? Okay,
sure.
Last topic. Is Jordan Mason the greatest running back of all time? Or is he the next Marion Barber? I saw, who was it that said that he was Greg Rosenthal said he had a lot in common with Marion Barber. I mean, same number, same kind of upright running style, similar hair. Marion Barber was
They
a
both
good
wear
running.
24.
Yeah, I mean, he was a good running back for the Cowboys. What do you think?
It's interesting because the Marion Barber, Marshawn Lynch, like somewhere in there, he falls somewhere in there. Marion Barber, though, was never, I don't know that he was ever like a full-time starter.
He never ran for 1,000 yards in a season.
Yeah, he was never a full-time starter. Now, he did have back-to-back seasons where he averaged 4.8 yards a carry and had 24 total touchdowns. Like that's pretty big. But more of like he was kind of at the beginning of that split back type era where it's like, okay, he's going to come in and close out games, or he was going to get the touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the player that he was. I think Mason can have a better career than Marion because he's probably going to go over 1,000 this year, barring injury. That'll be something that Marion Barber never did. So from that standpoint, I think he can be more productive. But as far as the style of play, I actually think that they are very similar. I don't have a problem with it. Marion Barber was a good player, man, and he was physical. You're right. He ran kind of upright. But like I said, Marion Barber, Marshawn Lynch, Jordan Mason, I mean, they're all kind of the same, really, as far as stylistically.
Maybe stylistically, just in terms of like the violence. But I just feel like in terms of the production, Jordan Mason is more special. Like he could lead the league in rushing this year. He could set the franchise record he's on pace to set the franchise record for rushing yards. Like that's special. And it's not just because he's in the right place at the right time. Like we've seen a lot of running backs here, and it's never quite looked like it's looked with Jordan Mason. So like someone I would compare him to, and he's a different running style, but it was the same system and had the same like burst onto the scene. Arian Foster.
Arian Foster.
Arian Foster was undrafted. He went to Houston, didn't play much his rookie year, and then in his second year led the league in rushing. Just led the league. Casually ran for 1,600 yards as a 24-year-old sophomore on Houston. Jordan Mason can do that. He's that good.
What do the 49ers do with Mason? He's a free agent next year. Now he's restricted. But let's say he goes out and somebody's willing to give him a 3-year, $36 million deal. Like, do the 49ers match that? Like, what do they do, man?
I think what you try to do is extend him right now. Like the way they extended Juwan Jennings. Hey, here's a 2-year deal. Hey, let's give you some security, man. You're running hard, man. Let's give you like they should extend him tonight. Is he not eligible though? He's not eligible though, is he? Can't do that.
Oh yeah, 3 years. You have to accumulate.
Ooh,
he is, however, eligible after the regular season.
Hey.
So as soon as the playoffs start, especially if CMC comes back and starts eating into those carries, I think that's the perfect time to be like, hey, I mean, listen, you're just a complimentary guy now.
Stock's only going to go down from here.
We'll give you a 3-year, $24 million.
They got to keep him. He's too good. You can't just. I know he's a running back, and they have Christian McCaffrey, but do you have Christian McCaffrey? And are you going to get a better running back for your team than this guy? I mean, he's so good.
Listen, Christian McCaffrey's a great name. Dre Greenlaw, great names, but they're both coming off of some sort of Achilles something. The players' names are the same. I don't know if the players are going to be the same, and that is a deciding factor. And Jordan Mason right now, they have to figure out a way to take some of the load off of his carries. Otherwise, he's going to end up in the same scenario. I mean, do you really want Mason to get 25 touches a game through most of the season and then go into the playoffs after? No, they have to figure out something, man. They do.
Real quick, talking about extending restricted free agents, Juwan Jennings before this season agreed to a 2-year, $15 million extension. Do you think he's regretting that right now?
Oh, he's regretting it. The 49ers are loving it. This is very much like what they did with Greenlaw.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's kind of reminds me of what regretting it.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of what they did with Mostert. I believe they gave Mostert an extension before 2019 because he was their number one gunner. And they gave him like this special, you're the best special teams guy contract. And then it turned out that he was their best running back. And I think he threatened to hold out, or maybe he requested a trade. He got a little upset because it's like, man, I'm your running back and you're giving me a special team contract. That's not fair. So it'd be interesting to see if like Juwan really goes for 1,000 yards or 10 touchdowns or both. If he comes back and he's like, oh, you know how I'm holding out now. This is ridiculous. I'm worth $31 million a year.
He could. He certainly could. That's the crazy thing about the league. It's like, yes, you've got him under contract, but that doesn't mean that these players can't hold out. I mean, if he balls out, I don't know that Jennings is the type, but I didn't think that Ayuk was necessarily that guy either. Ayuk's
True.
really turned into something that I didn't see coming. This whole the shorts thing is weird. All that it's so strange, and
I'd love to get your take on this. What do you see going on with him right now? It's strange.
It is like this whole thing in the offseason where he wanted the attention hasn't seemed to end. And
That's a good way of putting it.
I expected him once he got paid. It was like, okay, that was great, but now I'm going to be the guy that blocks and works hard and is a leader. For 2 years,
seen, but not heard.
We argued for him to be a captain for 2 years, Grant. 2 years.
And we didn't get it.
Was there always something behind the scenes that we weren't aware of? I think that's a possibility.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a possibility. You joked about it.
I do think he's got a little bit of a personal thing with Kyle, and I do think he's a little immature. Doesn't mean he's a bad person, but I feel like the immaturity coupled with not having a great relationship with the head coach means that some of his stuff is magnified, whereas if Debo did the same stuff, it wouldn't be looked at the same way because he's so charming and Kyle loves him.
Yeah, the whole shorts thing was so strange. And then kicking the shorts was like,
what are you doing, dude?
What is that, dude? What, like,
can you imagine Justin Jefferson ever doing that? It's beneath both of them. That whole thing was beneath both of them. Kyle for having to say it, Brandon for actually putting himself in that situation. It's like, you two are two of the most successful, highly paid people in the sport. Like, come on, guys. Come on.
Yeah, it's like, here's the thing, though, too, is when you're not playing up to standard, all those things are amplified. If he had balled out the game before, got 110 yards and 2 touchdowns and 10 catches, nobody would have cared. But because he didn't do those things, it's like, okay, so are you frustrated with your role? Are you frustrated with how you're playing? Are you frustrated with the scheme? Like, what is it? You're clearly frustrated with something. This is like, it's not because of the shorts. That's not what you're frustrated with. There's something else going on. And really, you should only probably be frustrated with yourself because no, you're not getting the targets. You can put that on Purdy. You can put that on Kyle, but the targets you are getting, you're not making the most of either. So, you have to take some accountability for that.
And when you hold in for 30 million because 26 isn't enough and you get it, people don't really want to hear your grievances anymore, man. They just want to see you produce. And we understand if you watch the film, it's not all your fault that you're not producing, but the casual fan isn't going to watch the film, man. Like this, and you should have known if you push for the top value, it comes with this level of scrutiny. And if you don't want it, give back $4 million a year. That's all it takes. And all of a sudden people are like, man, this guy's the most generous. He doesn't care about money at all. He only plays for $26 million a year. Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, Brandon. I wish, on a 2,000 view video where I show a cut up of you getting open halfway through was enough to sway the 49er fan base, but it's not going to be. So you better start catching the damn ball. It's just the way
there's only so much Jesse can do, and eventually you're going to have to pay him.
Exactly.
Because your agent is
30 million.
100 million. 100 mil. B. White says, my 10-year-old son named Cam Whitehead told me to tell you, can we trade players 22, 59, 10, 56 for Reddick? He loves the show. We're from VA, okay? Why not? So that would be Isaac Yadam, Devondre Campbell, Ronnie Bell, and Leonard Floyd. That is a package of players that I don't think any team could turn down. Who wouldn't want that combination?
Hey, we'll take it.
Hell yeah. I mean, the Niners just added all those players, and so far, so good. MM Forever what are the chances Ayuk for Adams straight up?
1%, I guess. I guess anything's possible, but
I just would love that. I'd love to envision Kyle asking Denise for permission. Hey, Denise, I know a month ago I told you that Brandon Ayuk was utterly essential and that we shouldn't trade him to Pittsburgh and that you should give him a big signing bonus, and you did, and all that guaranteed money. Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you. Second of all, I want to say I was wrong. Way wrong. He's not good at all. He's terrible. Let's trade him to the Raiders for Davante Adams, who's extremely expensive. And all that money that you spent on Ayuk, just flush it down the toilet. And now let's spend a whole lot more money on Davante Adams. What do you say?
It's more like, first of all, I know that I said that, I wanted to pay Ayuk and he's going to be great. Second of all, did you lose weight? God, you look great, by the way. So anyways, Davante Adams, who could have foreseen this coming, right?
I don't think Kyle's in the position right now to ask for more money, more spending from the front office. I mean, dude, they gave guaranteed money to Christian McCaffrey. I think they're probably done for now.
Yeah. They're going to make
the money, you gave it to the wrong guy.
Receiver is not it, dude. You've got enough on offense.
Oh, I can't wait. Trade for him and give him 5 targets. See how that goes. Hey, Davante, we're run first team. Hey, we spread it around. Our quarterback just goes through his progressions. Team guy.
Perfect.
Anyway, that's the
you
show.
Like to block, right?
We call this 49ers After Dark, but really when the darkness hits, that's when the show's over because I'm outside right now. It's 117 degrees inside, roughly. Outside, it feels more like 75. So that's why I was out here tonight.
It's beautiful out there. It's a nice deck you got.
Yeah, thank you, man. Well, the Niners playing Tampa in like a month and a half. I'll be out there.
Perfect.
So what they're going to be like in a month and a half? Do you know?
A month and a half, it'll probably be high 70s.
Sounds
clear.
Wonderful. Sounds phenomenal. Well, Jesse, good show. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
For everything that you do and everyone that watched. And the people that didn't. Rafael Flores says Niners should hire Salah if he gets fired. Think Salah comes back?
I think there's a possibility for it. I would love it.
Want him.
Yeah.
Nothing against Nick Sorensen. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I'll be back tomorrow.